What's up, y'all? It's T-Tar, and I think I might have an idea of what the Scarlet and Violet story really is. And this is crazy, no matter what way you look at this. So buckle up, but take this lightly, right? All of these are gonna sound like crack ideas, but while editing the last video, I just went down a whole thought process. And I have to come here and tell it to you guys, because I think this might be this ultimate story they're trying to tell in the Indigo disc when it comes out, and the real plot twist behind what the Paradox Pokemon are. And this thought process starts off with the question of, where did Sada and Turo really go? You know, with the imagination theory for Teropagus, we don't know where they went. They just got crushed in the machine. But every question, the more I think about this theory, it works out. Right now, the imagination theory is the best we can say, because when it comes to the story, there's 4 parts to it, and they don't really work with each other. And they're all colliding ideas. 1, Teropagus has the power to change a Pokemon's typing. 2, its crystals have infinite potential that AIs can be made. And then 3, somehow time travel is involved. And then 4, the Pokemon that time travel are called paradoxes for some reason. Whenever we try to make sense of all these, the only possible answer is that they're from the imagination, and Teropagus is making lied Pokemon that Heath made up come to life for the sake of Sada and Turo's dreams. And in that situation, where Sada and Turo went is they died. the robots just died. But I want to try this idea with you guys. So it starts off like this, right? No one has ever been able to get into Area 0. The Paldean king tried 2,000 years ago, and he spent a whole 1,000 years sending people in, and they kept failing until the empire crumbled. He spread his resources too thin. Then 805 years ago, Uva or Naranja Academy is made, and Heath is the very first person along with his expedition team to ever make it into Area 0. But what does Heath write about in his books when he makes it? He writes about proof that people were here before. The tablet, the grassy patch, and when we go down, we see that room with all the crystals that Sada and Turo surely didn't make. And in the last video, I was talking about the idea that maybe the 4 symbols that are on the cover of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are actually the 4 keystones that when you put together, you can reinvent a lost technology that the people who left these tablets and all originally had in Area 0. And what I'm comparing this to is how there's Atlantis written in the code everywhere in the game's files, which is the story of a super civilized group of people that in one day, their whole land sunk and crumbled and everyone died. But they had extreme technology by mining orichalcum ore, and which is in Koraidon's ability, and then having knowledge of science to the point of understanding hadrons, small particles, which is in Miraidon's ability, right? So this works out with Atlantis. So where this theory starts, this idea is that there was a super civilized group of people that had this technology. So what I'm trying to say here is, let's just pretend it's Pokemon Scarlet, so Sada's the main one. Thousands of years ago, I'm saying an ancient civilization died and crumbled away in Area 0. They're also the ones who made that machine that we find in Area 0. Not Sada, but they're the ones who made it, using Teropagus' power. But thousands of years later, Sada and Turo, well Sada, she finds the remnants of their technology and fixes the time machine. But this is the real twist, right? It's not a time machine. What it really is a machine they invented to access Teropagus' land. You see, I've mentioned this before, but what Teropagus is based off a story, Uranoshimako or Urashima Taro, where a guy discovers a turtle, and when traveling on the turtle's back, he accesses some weird land where time moves differently. So you see how they mentioned that using this time machine, you can send in a Pokeball freely and retrieve it, but once a human goes inside, they can't come back out, right? So imagine that this is not a time machine, but a man-made creation, a machine to manually enter Teropagus' land. What I'm saying is that ancient civilization, before it crumbled, they used the time machine and tried to escape the disaster. This is the archetype, you know, it's a common archetype that a natural disaster wipes out civilizations, like the flood in the Bible stories, and you need Noah's Ark to escape it, right? But I'm saying this ancient civilization, they geniusly used the time machine to save like the last people that were nearby, and they escaped, and then everything crumbled. And maybe that's why they left remnants of how to remake the time machine, so someone could open that door again. And the counterpart to this in Pokemon Violet would be, in the future, they remake this time machine again and recreate the technology again and suffer the same impending doom where everything's about to be destroyed. And what do? Just like the ancient people, they quickly use the time machine to escape into Trubogus's land. So now we have an origin to what happened in Scarlet, where a bunch of ancient people and the past Pokemon escaped to Trubogus's land. And then in Pokemon Violet, where a bunch of future people and the future Pokemon escaped to Trubogus's land. So what I'm saying is they really are past Pokemon and future Pokemon. And the reason I have to make them past and future Pokemon is because of their abilities. You can't make up that the past Pokemon benefit from the drought and the future Pokemon from the electric terrain. They can't be paradox Pokemon in any sense that makes sense. They have to be time traveling Pokemon in that sense. So that's why when Sada sends out her fishing rod through the Tropogus machine, she's just fishing out Pokemon from the past that are living in this paradise. And that's why when Tura uses the machine, he's fishing out the future Pokemon that are in that paradise, their counterpart stories. It makes the most sense. If Tropogus has no actual time travel abilities, its home is just somewhere outside of time. And so this machine is just the way to access it. Now remember, this is just a crack idea, right? I just want to share ideas with you guys. This is an alternate way to deal with this issue without relying on the imagination idea. This works. So imagine that, like Mount Coronet is a place where the fabric of the universe is thin, and so you can access the Hall of Origin and where Dialga and Palkia live and all. That Area Zero, it's called the hidden treasure of Area Zero because that's the place that's closest to Tropogus. But yeah, so what Sada and Tura are doing is they're sending Master Balls to Trobogus's land, which is filled with either future Pokemon or past Pokemon, along with the survivors from the two calamities that escaped. Only one or the other. Don't ask me why only one or the other. That's just how this has to work out. Maybe if you're playing Pokemon Violet, the ancient people don't successfully time travel in time. And maybe if you're playing Pokemon Scarlet, the future people don't time travel in the future. Time travel as in they escape to Trobogus's land and are stuck there. But it makes sense how Sada and Tora were able to pull out either past or future Pokemon this way too. They're literally fishing in Trobogus's land. But I got more for you. Okay, so next point. Another paradox that makes no sense is Sada and Turo need to be the ones that pull out the Paradox Mons in the current day, which makes it impossible that they were spotted in Area Zero 200 years ago when Heath went down there. But see, Tropogus' home is in Area Zero, and as evidenced by how everything is influenced and filled with crystals, at times it appears that the door will open and close, just not very often. The Paradox Pokemon Heath saw could be stray ones that accidentally left Tropogus' paradise home and wandered outside to Area Zero. If Heath ran back down to Area Zero after publishing his book and being ridiculed, maybe he found his way down there too. And the door was open and he found the hidden treasure of Area Zero and found the Tropogus paradise. I don't know what to do about these thoughts because I sound crazy, but what we can get is, after we saw in the trailers, after we beat Blueberry Academy, we have to return to Area Zero to discover the hidden treasure. So what this opens up is an Ultra Megalopolis or Distortion World type situation where we make it to the hidden treasure of Area Zero, which on the inside has fragments of the ancient civilization living since they escaped their extreme disaster to Tropogus' land, or a future civilization, and which means you'll go inside and meet these people. And maybe they're protecting Tropogus and they'd be bad, or maybe they're passive, and it's like a whole town inside the hidden treasure of Area Zero where everyone's dressed looking all Flintstone-y like Sada was, or they're dressed looking all techno like Tura was. And the weirdest part is, going back to the initial question, where did Sada and Toro really go at the end of Scarlet and Violet? Maybe the AIs are alive in there too. I mean, this is just as good a dream as they wanted to see. And maybe that's where Sada and Toro went when they tried to time travel. And so as for why the Paradox Pokemon are called Paradox Pokemon, and this is why I love this theory, right? It retains the idea that they are ancient Pokemon and future Pokemon. It would be a bummer if they were imagination Pokemon, which is why I like this. But why this could make sense as to why they're called Paradox Pokemon is maybe the same way when you go into the Distortion World and it says Distortion World on the top of the screen. Maybe once you enter the hidden treasure of Area Zero and now you're on the other side in Terupagus's Paradise home, it's called something like Paradox World because it's a place outside of time, or a place where time moves on its own pace, completely unrelated to our world. And so it's not that the Pokemon themselves are paradoxes, but that they've been living in this Paradox Paradise, whatever the name of Terupagus's palace is called, for so long that we just categorize them as Pokemon from the Paradox World, as in Paradox Pokemon. I mean, that's my crack theory, dog. I don't know what else to tell you. This actually lines up with the mythology of Uranoshimako and explains in a more realistic way how time travel is involved in the story. It also gives like an answer to why when Heath got close enough to the bottom of Area Zero that he started going into trances and getting equations stuck in his head. They got really close to Terupagus's paradise, and maybe the either civilizations that are stuck inside want someone to remake the time machine to break the door open so they can get back out. After all, when Heath does go straying away from his friends and goes into a trance, he says, look at this, look what it says. He says he ended up in an unfamiliar place, and it's like he spoke to someone. It's like he got close enough that he was speaking to these super civilized people, regardless of if they're the future version or the past ones, and they wanted to tell him anything they could so that he would maybe remake the machine to break open the barrier again. Unlike Alola and Galar, we never got this story of this doom that happened 3,000 years ago and they're gonna come back. Necrozma took everyone's light, Eternatus summoned the Great Storm. It doesn't sound like Terupagos did anything bad. It's like these people who came to Paldea, either in the past or the future, they played with fire when playing with Terupagus's little crystals and making these advancements, and it ended up with them getting stuck in Terupagus's world. Okay, and so last mystery you guys might be asking is, well, if the Paradox Pokemon can naturally roam out of Terupagus's palace into Area Zero, can't the people as well? How are the civilizations stuck in there and trying to tempt Heath with equations? Well, the game explains this, because when Sada and Toro explain the time machine and the only way they can make it function and interact with wherever it's pointing, they say they can pull Pokemon out, but for some reason they can't pull humans out. They're trapped in there, which means the AIs are trapped in there and the civilizations are trapped in there. And at the end of the game, when we go back down there to Area Zero with Briar and a couple of others, we must unlock some key that allows us to be the first people to cross that gate and come back out, which could lead to some happy endings like us seeing the AIs again and maybe finally freeing those people that are stuck in there. But this means that there really was always Paradox Pokemon roaming in Area Zero, but because someone put them in Terupagus's palace in the first place. Those equations that the civilization trapped inside gave Heath might be the key they uncovered on the inside to breaking them out. They just want someone to make the machine work. And by the time we're done the 2 DLCs, we have figured out the key. That answers every mystery, right? It does. I think my favorite part of this is the idea that if you played Scarlet and you were going to the hidden treasure, that the inside of Terupagus's palace would look all past-like. So it's like you're going to the past, but not because you're actually going to the past, but because Terupagus's palace had been overtaken by the past people. Maybe even in a peaceful way. Maybe they coexist with Terupagus. And then same thing for the future game. I really think this works. Anyhow, make sure y'all shank that like button. Do what you will with this theory. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll see if the first DLC makes or breaks this theory. But for now, I'm kind of proud of it. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.